Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis,
My name's Sam.
and this is BS on the DL. We are going to be giving our opinions and thoughts on the ending of 1984 by George Orwell. Some of the main points that we're going to be covering in this is going to be the conditioning that Winston faces when he's inside the Ministry of Love. So after they destroyed him, they put him back to pieces, basically, from the ground up, fattened him up a little bit. We're also going to be talking about how his heart never really betrayed her until the very end when he gets put into room 101. And by her, I mean Julia, obviously. We're going to be speaking specifically on the fact of what happens after when he actually gets released and his ultimate conviction of his change of heart and him not loving Julia anymore and loving Big Brother.
So initially, when he is put in the Ministry of Love, he's tortured. He finds out that O'Brien, who was his hope and dream of surviving and maybe killing himself with the razor, is actually the guy that's torturing him the whole time. So it's kind of screwed up how that works, and he starts to dehumanize him to the point where the torture literally rots him to the core. And he rips a tooth out and throws it, and he says, "You are literally rotting to the core. How can you still believe in, or how can you still be against the party?" Then after that, he starts to ease up, and Winston starts to kind of I guess go with what O'Brien tells him to do, and they start feeding him. They start letting him rest, not torturing him as much. He starts to recover. And he starts to really his hair doesn't grow back. He's still bald, but he's still they give him they pull all of his bad teeth. They give him dentures, and they start to really give him some kind of stability.
Yeah. And what I think those main things really emphasize is that pain can really control you, and then taking you away from the pain as well. That really emphasized the whole O'Brien being his savior, and that added to more of the hope that he originally had. So ultimately, it wasn't just fear and pain that they used. They had a little bit of hope to hurt him, and that's something that we really need to be careful with in society even today. So speaking of that hope, inside Winston's own heart, he never really gave up loving Julia. He was progressing intellectually, especially when O'Brien was like, "Oh, you're doing great intellectually. You're so great at this. Oh my gosh, that 2 + 2 = 5." But there's still, a little bit of stuff in your heart that you're just not believing. So Winston, after a little bit of his recovery, started dreaming and screaming out, as all of you may know, screaming for Julia's name. And he was going to confess it as soon as O'Brien came in. O'Brien came in with the guards, and he's like, "Yeah, you know what's going to happen now? Room 101. He's like, "What's in room 101? So you've always known what's in room 101. It's the worst thing ever. His greatest fear. So when they put him into this room, you guys know what happens. His greatest fear is introduced to him. He's chained, not really, he's bounded, and it's introduced slowly to him, and he breaks. It's finally enough to really get him to betray her. And Sam, I was crying at this part, so Sam is gonna have to talk about this because I'm gonna cry again.
So basically, the point that O'Brien makes is when he literally he's faced with his biggest fear, he is pushed to the point of breaking, to where when he says to O'Brien, I want Julia to have this rather than me. I wish this upon Julia rather than on me. That is when he doesn't say it and not mean it. He means it. He means it. It's not some kind of oh well, in the spur of the moment and whatever happened. No, he means it. He in the deepest sense of his body means it. And I feel that's where it starts to really that's what got him the most. I feel that's where his grip on the life other than Big Brother is just gone. He doesn't have love for her anymore. He doesn't have anything other than the party and Big Brother at this point.
Yeah, and I guess something that really kind of ties back into when he first meets up with O'Brien back at his place was the one thing that he denounced, that he said he wouldn't do, and so did Julia, was betray each other. That was the one thing that they would not agree to. They'd throw acid in the kid's face, but they were never going to give each other up. And then when worse comes to worse, literally worse comes to worse, it happened. And everything that Sam said, especially, you know, like when they released Winston, he's thinking again. He's seeing all these memories that he's had, and he's practicing that double think that really got ingrained into him during his time in the Ministry of Love. And he's falsifying his own memories, saying, no, that didn't happen. Some things happened, some of them didn't. Nope, no, Big Brother's my love, that's it. And even when he meets Julia, the entire scene where he meets Julia is just speckled with symbolism between the grass being dead, not a single bud was growing, the physical connection that he had with her. He even said it was similar to holding a dead body that he pulled out of a bomb explosion. Like, felt like stone. It's totally different than in part 2 or act 2, whatever it's called. Like, his entire reaction to her and how he spent his time with her is totally different. He acknowledges it, and they both declare that they betrayed each other. They both realized it, and it sucks. It sucks. I didn't like it. It makes sense to the story, it makes sense to the universe of the story, but personally didn't like it. So yeah, so by the end of the book, like the last couple pages really shows how his heart has converted to completely ignore all human instincts, like it's symbolized, like he was symbolized as the last human, as O'Brien said. He is the last human, and with Room 101's experience, he's died. Last human's dead. He no longer is a human. He has no human emotions. He only has emotions for Big Brother. And when he sees the poster of Big Brother and he looks at the eyes, he's like, and the mustache and how strong he sees him. He sees him as a protector and all the good things, but he doesn't see that, like, ultimately Big Brother is controlling everybody. He's controlling everything, and it's the party that's, you know, behind it all. But he loves Big Brother no matter what, even though he has gone through all this torture, all this like pain and agony, and they've taken people that he's been very, very close to. Not only Julia, but like his mother, possibly. They've taken people from his work. They've taken all sorts of people from his life, and he still has no other emotion other than love for Big Brother. And the last part really kind of I liked it a lot because it kind of like came full circle, where he starts off by absolutely hating everything that has to do with it. And then he's, you know, introduced to Julia, and then he kind of starts to like her, and then like she brings all these different emotions and everything, and then he gets invested into her and their experiences together, while the whole time was just he was being watched by Big Brother, and it was let happen. It was kind of an interesting end for sure, but I enjoyed it, definitely. Yeah. So I guess my final thoughts on the novel as a whole, and I guess the question that it really begs for me, is it really like makes me question ignorance in two different ways. It's the ignorance that the proles deal with, that their lives are just their lives. They don't know any better. The ignorance almost just because they don't know any better. And then there's the ignorance of accepting everything that is given to you. And what is really the difference at the end of the day? Winston is no longer Winston. There is no Winston Smith anymore. He's R2-D2 for all I care right now, like straight up. Mm-hmm. And his life right now is just him believing what needs to be believed, with no second guessing any of it. He's living a blissful life. Like they say, ignorance is bliss, or ignorance is strength. But it's not even strength of his own, it's strength of the party. And it's the same thing with the proles, I believe, but just a different way that they go about it.
So I agree with some of that, but I also say that the main gist of the book, I believe, is that there's so many... it's based on totalitarian like regimes, like the Nazis and the Gestapo and all that, but it's based on the idea that like if there was a government that could control, like the party can control, like if they put enough, like if they put all the time and effort that the party had put in, and if they put all of the, you know, people in the right places, and if they controlled the right amount of people, they could do this. Like it's not, like it says, they control the minds, and if they can't control the minds, then they'll control the body and go right back to the mind. They will control you no matter what. It's hopeless. So it's definitely a warning for governments or organizations or whatever that might be very power hungry, like the party. That you don't want to let them have as much power as they want to have, because if they want ultimate power, they can get it eventually.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah. So I kind of wish we also read A Brave New World, so we'd be able to like compare the really differences between the Orwellian thoughts and I forgot the other dude's name, but you know who I'm talking about. The Brave New World's author, or I think it's called that.
Yeah, Brave New World.
Brave New World. Because there's really the main, like what Dr. Lear taught us was that there's two different ways to really try and get to control people. So I think it'd be really cool if we could have some kind of internal discussion about that and even try and apply it to society now, especially with this election year coming up. So thank you guys for listening. This has been BS on the DL. I hope you guys subscribe to our channel. Please like and subscribe. And we also have a Patreon as well as a GoFundMe, as well as we love you guys. Love us.